Welcome to a new set of lives that I have recently started. I'm doing some interviews with friends, colleagues, members of my coaching program, working groups, and other industry experts and leaders that I believe will bring value to you, my people, and help you in your business, your life, or both. So today's coffee chat is with Coffee with Evakarin. She is a longtime dame. She is a friend and colleague, and she is actually not in the U.S. either. This is a fun one. This is an international coffee chat. So, Eva Karin, introduce yourself to my listeners here and let them know about you a little bit, and then we'll jump into the conversation.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me here. It's a pleasure. And what I do, I'm passionate about fears. I'm passionate about limitations, obstacles, because within them we can find gems and gold and magical things can happen when we start to look into them. I used to be afraid of everything, and then I became friends with fear, and then I experienced the absence of fear. And do you know what lies behind fear? It's total trust. And I don't mean this kind of trust where we work to find the trust, but being in trust, not having to work with it to find it, because it's already there. So that is what I want to help people with, to find their inner trust and use fears as the tool to how to find it and to create magic in their lives.
I love it. I love it because everybody experiences fear, doubt, worry, and that can be just in personal life or business life or a combination thereof because a lot of times they overlap. So let's talk about the biggest fear you come across in your clients and the people you work with and talk about that. What is that biggest fear or the most common fear you deal with in your business and in your coaching?
It's several. I would like to point out fear of selling, fear of being visible, fear of not being good enough. I think that is the three biggest ones that I come across.
Okay. And those all, I've been there, done that on all of those. And
Who hasn't?
yeah, who hasn't? So, well, let's talk about fear of selling first. What does that look like? Because I know some people think, "Oh, I'm not afraid to sell," or but they really are because they're not facing the full reality of why they're not getting on that phone call or why they're not sending that email. So let's talk about fear of sales first and how we can bust that fear apart.
Yeah. So the interesting thing is that we might not even recognize when we have the fears, but if we just notice our actions, what are we doing? As you mentioned, I should phone this person, but I do that tomorrow. Or I do something else instead. Noticing what is stopping you. And we can feel the sensation usually in our bodies that there's some icky feeling. Sometimes it's a really heavy feeling. I used to put my fears, notice them in my stomach, in my solar plexus, and I get this knot in my stomach when the fear comes up. And so the first thing is to notice that I'm actually doing something other than I was thinking, planning of doing. So awareness is number one. And then to notice, what is this about really? Why am I not doing this? Because it could be small things that we don't even recognize that is involved in selling. So it could be all things packaged into one. But if we break it down into small steps, so what would happen if I would call this person? Well, maybe not much of calling the person, but what am I afraid of receiving from this person? Is it that I'm afraid of not getting a no to my offer? Is it that I'm gonna gonna ask for money, and I feel that is an icky thing. So break it down to small steps and see, what is it about this process of selling that I don't like? It can be one thing, it can be several things. But to break it down so you can really find out, what is this about? And ask yourself, what am I afraid of? What is it that I don't want to happen?
Got it. Got it. Okay. And then once you go through that process and figure out what the fear is, what the block is there a way to bust through that and move
Mhm.
through it?
And I would phrase it a little bit differently than bust through it, because it feels like it's forcing, and doesn't have to be. Because if we see fear as an asset, you don't need to bust through an asset, but you can use it to your advantage. So normally what people do, and I used to do a lot of earlier on in my life, was to either try to not feel the fear and bust through, and it was painful, and it was hard. And the other thing was that I drowned into the feeling, and the thoughts that were connected to the feeling, they were telling me all kinds of stuff. I wasn't good enough, and I couldn't do this, and I couldn't manage this or that. So those are the two strategies we normally have. But if we leave them at the side and we notice the fear and stay with it, we can notice what the message is that it gives us, because it always has a message. The reason why the fear is banging on our door, our physical door, is that they have an important message to bring to us. And when we receive the message, the fear is not needed anymore. So then it can leave you. You don't have to fight it.
Okay. I like that. I like seeing it from that perspective, because you're right. When you're fear busting and breaking through, some that can have the busting part is definitely kind of a negative connotation. Breakthrough tends to have a more positive feeling to it, but what you're saying is even better than that. It's truly 100% positive approach. So, and I would imagine this same sort of process works for, fear of being visible, fear of what was the third one that you mentioned?
Not being good enough.
Not being good enough. Yes. So the process applies to any fear. Is that correct?
Yeah, it doesn't matter what it is. But the funny thing is that what lies in beneath it, because we have been trained since childhood about, um, you know, how we experience life, and that was ingrained into our subconscious mind, and we tend to um, get the same situation happen, or a similar situation. So I spoke to a woman yesterday, and that was really different situation. Never heard that before. And what she said was that people give me everything, always. But when I really need something and I ask for it, I don't get it. So I asked her, well, what happened when you were a child? When was it you didn't get what you needed? And she said, well, I was the center of attention. I always got everything. But when I was sad in the middle of the night and I was screaming, no one came. So that, see how the pattern, still runs her life. And she was so frustrated that she would get things, but not when she actually needed things. Then everything, or nothing came, I should say.
Okay.
And
So
and I,
that, go ahead.
yeah, I spoke to another client of mine, and she's running a business, a podcast agency in Sweden. And she is really active and have a lot of energy, and she has been amazing to draw really famous people to want to have their podcast on her company. And it has been sort of up, off and on, off and on, and off and on. And the thing was that she had some issues with her father from childhood, and that was affecting this off and on thing. So we have to remember that life is not only what we see and are conscious with. We have to realize that there is a bigger thing. It's in our subconscious mind, and it has stored traumas and experiences that we interpret it in our way, and that is still running our lives if we haven't changed it. So the fear is the messenger of what programmings we have from before.
I love that. That sounds. I mean, I totally get that, and hopefully our listeners are as well. So, do you have a program that people can take? I mean, I know you're a coach, so they can work with you privately. Are you doing like group programs or anything like that? How do you help people in with your services and those kinds of things? How do you work?
Yeah, I like to guide people so they become self-sufficient and not have to rely on some other coach to work constantly. I do work with one-to-one clients, but not so many, because there are people that want to have that service. But what I also want to do is I want to teach a very simple and effective method how to reach deep, deep down into the subconscious mind and rewire that. So release these old programmings and install new programmings that it's good for us to have for us to reach our goals. Because how you're programmed is how your life shows up, the choices you make, how you see yourself. So if you want to reach the 6 figures or 7 figures, you need to think different about yourself depending on what level you're aiming for. So when you can reprogram your subconscious mind and take the action, there's nothing that can stop you.
I love that. So tell everybody where they can find you. If you have a program that you're offering now or a free thing, whatever it is, tell us about it, where to find you and what you're offering right now in your business to help people get through these fears that they're having in their business, in their life, whether it be around sales, visibility, any of the things that people have fears around.
Yeah, I would recommend to start with a video, 20-minute video, where I worked with a woman to help her release her fear. And on a scale from 1 to 10, it was a 9 when we started. And at the end, it was 0. It was totally 0. And she was totally transformed. And this is a lady that worked as a healer for 20 years and always felt it was icky to ask for money. She had problems with, people called her up and wanted her help. And it was hard for her to say no. So she worked a lot for free. Now that is gone. So then we can see how this expansion method works and see if this is an interest to learn themselves.
Awesome. So I have a link for that I can put comments after we're done here.
Yes, I have.
What is
So
that?
I'll give you the link. It's evakarinwallin.com. Release your fear of selling, with a lot of I don't know the words for the
Hyphens?
well, you see on the hyphens, yeah.
Yeah, evakarinwallin.com /
Release hyphen fear hyphen of hyphen selling.
Gotcha. All righty. And I will put that in the comments once the live is ended and it's processed on all the platforms we're on. We're not just on LinkedIn. We're also on Facebook and YouTube. So everybody, I want to thank you for showing up and for listening to us talk about breaking through fear in a more positive, easeful way. And Evakarin, thank you for coming and having coffee with me.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Coffee cheers to everyone in my lovely Harry Potter mug. Yes, I have Harry Potter mugs
Oh,
too.
yeah.
So, but it was really great having you on the show today, and I appreciate your time and love what you're doing for the people out there that are really in need of support around their fears. So, thank you, and thank everybody
Thank
for
you.
listening today.